I'm gonna be real. I promised myself I wasn't gonna do an episode about this. Uh, Other than a few comments here and there in the past year, I haven't really given too much of an opinion on this situation until a couple weeks ago, and I just got some thoughts. You know what time it is? It's 14:30. Let's get it. All right. So I'm gonna probably make this one quick. I'm a little late on this one. I did a very important, like a very enjoyable podcast, very positive podcast that was very near and dear to my heart with my boy Southside Just. If you haven't watched that one, I know it's a little long, but me and Just for the anniversary of Pac's "Me Against the World" album, the album that inspired me to pick up a microphone, which also led, in that journey led me to this show. Uh, you know, that album is the reason why Vinnie-Dangerous exists. So if you haven't seen that one, of all the episodes that I've done, like I would highly appreciate people watching that one, digesting that one, and leaving a comment. Also subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you stick around because I got plenty more episodes coming throughout the year. And follow me on Instagram and let me know if there's anything that you want me to talk about. Maybe other albums that, maybe anniversaries are coming up, or, just albums that, you want me to give my opinion on or something like that. I don't do full blown album reviews. I always say that's weird as an artist to do. Just personally, I don't knock anybody that does it, but just personally for me, it just feels weird. But like if you want me to talk about how I feel about it, just on a personal level, let me know. But I'm rambling. We're gonna get right back into the episode because I got some thoughts. So I'm recording this way ahead of from the time that you see it to when I'm recording it right now. I'm recording this way ahead because it just so happens that I recorded the episode about the Pac album the same week that Chris Rock's special came out, where he finally speaks on the slap. And first, I want to give my opinion on the special. I thought it was great. I wouldn't say it was one of Chris's best specials. Maybe I need to go back and watch it, because he saved it towards the end, which is smart. He saved so everybody will watch it, all the way through. But he saved the Will Smith Oscar controversy, addressing that. He saved that towards the end. And I think by doing that, it kind of took away, like, I'm like, okay, cool. I laughed at this joke. I laughed at that joke. But I'm really just waiting to see what you got to say about Will, Jada, and the Oscars thing, So maybe I'll go back and watch it again and I might enjoy it more. But it's not one of his best, but I still really enjoyed it, right? And I like, first of all, I salute Chris Rock because I like how he did it. He was smart about it. He could have went on an interview on somebody's podcast or somebody's morning show, or he could have went on social media and went on like a Twitter tirade or an Instagram tirade. And of a lot of, and people who do it for far less, that have been embarrassed on such a lesser level, have done those exact things. And so if he would have did that, even though, I don't know how it would have came off, because you could definitely tell from in the special that he's still, rightfully so, still very pissed off about everything that happened. But he was smart about it. He waited, got his mind right, got a bag for it. I heard he made like $40 million or close to it for the special with Netflix. to finally like let loose. Because everybody's been able to give their opinion. Will Smith is, he did the Oscar speech after he slapped Chris and won the award. Then he turned around and went on Instagram to apologize to Chris directly, as direct as apology on Instagram is. Even Jada, through a publicist, I assume, made a comment about the situation and addressed it. So, and then, everybody from news pundits to athletes to, other comedians to just any and everybody that has a Twitter account or whatever social media you prefer has been able to give their opinion and how they feel about it. But Chris laid low and said, and this is just me, I don't know Chris like that, but this is just me thinking, like, my guess is that he decided to wait so long to make the right business move because of two things. One, the one thing outside of, the jokes and things like that, the one thing people have been saying about Chris is that they wanted to know what his opinion is on it. Like, how he's going to address it. Because he's going to address it. He can't just, like, avoid it forever. But, it's just, that's the one opinion that we never got. And the longer that it took, the more valuable it was. So he could just tuck that away and, use it to his advantage. Because that's the one thing of value out of the situation that he has, or he had, that he could turn into, something positive. Because there's not too many positive outcomes in this situation. So that's the first reason. It's like, I know that me addressing this situation is the one thing of value out of this that I could like take advantage of. But also, I think he waited because you don't want to go into a situation like hyper emotional, like, and to be embarrassed the way that Chris was on national television in front of the world. Like, he, I could see the reaction being from anybody, any man put in that same position. I could see the reaction being like very a lot of vitriol and very like incoherent. And you really want to take a step back, get yourself together, and choose your words as wisely as possible while also getting your point across. And he was able to let loose and get a bag for it. And the only reason why I'm doing this episode of the podcast about it is mainly because of the reaction. Because, like I said, wasn't like the best special, but also like his reaction was exactly what I expected his reaction to be. So it wasn't even really shocking. He didn't say anything that I hadn't already see other people say, like on social media, like, the stuff about Will Smith in August and the whole entanglement thing. He talked about how, wow, out of all the people that had something to say about you in this whole situation, you decide to slap Chris Rock. And, just everything he said, even down to calling Will a bitch like 20 times and calling Jada a bitch one time in passing. Like, that was all expected. So it didn't really shock me. It was funny. Yeah, I laughed, but it wasn't anything that I thought, it wasn't anything that I learned new, or like he didn't like put it in a way that I didn't think about or contextualize on my own. So, he just was able to vent. And it's the reactions that's really been like bugging me since I actually had a close friend of mine. Me and her got into it over the phone over the situation. And I think the part that kind of irks me about the reaction, whether it's from my friend or what I've been seeing on social media, is that it's all about Jada. It's all about what Chris had to say about Jada. And this whole situation started because of what Chris had to say about Jada during a light joke. My problem, so like I said, I haven't really talked about this because first and foremost, I am a big fan of Will Smith. I'm a big fan of Chris Rock. I probably watched more Will Smith movies than I've watched movies with Chris Rock in it. Like growing up in the 90s, like Men in Black, Independence Day, two of my favorite movies as a kid. And then Pursuit of Happiness. It's a movie that like may have been the first movie I ever cried to. And even movies that people hated on, like Focus and I liked his performance in Suicide Squad or I Am Legend, I Robot. Like anything Will Smith was in for a long time, except for 7 pounds. But I think I was just a little freaked out by the premise. I'm young. I don't. Somebody spoiled the ending for me, and I was already like, nah. It freaked me out a little bit. But other than that one, for a long time, anything that Will Smith touched, I was watching. And Chris Rock, like I said, I probably watched more Will Smith movies than Chris Rock, but Bigger and Blacker, Bring the Pain, like there's some legendary comedic specials. And then a lot of the times if I see a movie with Chris Rock in it, I've enjoyed the movie. I've enjoyed his performance. So I've always been, and then Everybody Hates Chris. He's not in the show, but it's just one of my favorite sitcoms ever. So I've been a big fan of both these guys. And just the fact that they're two black men, two successful black men, for the most part, I haven't really heard a bad thing said about them. Outside of, just little stuff like the entanglement stuff, or maybe, the video clip that everybody keeps bringing up of, I can't even remember the dude's name. It's a white comedian saying the N-word, and Chris sitting there, not basically saying anything. I don't want to get into that. It's a bad look. I'm not gonna defend that at all. But other than those incidents separate from those two guys, I've never really heard too much bad said about these guys, right? And there's two guys that I admire a lot for their contributions and their talent and their legacy. So to see those two guys implode like that and go at each other the way that went down at the Oscars last year, like it hurt. It hurt. I remember laying in bed and my now wife first of all, nobody watches the Oscars. All right. Nobody sits there and watch the Oscars. If I care about the results, I'm probably gonna Google it or watch it on the news, like somebody break down who won and who didn't. I don't really care about the Oscars. So we not watching the Oscars. We're laying in bed. I think I'm even about to go to sleep. I think I had a long day the next day. And so, but she's on Twitter, looking, she's seeing everybody talk about it. Oh my God, Chris Rock just got slapped by Will Smith. And she was laughing. And, the immediate reaction, especially from women, from what I saw, was that, like he was defending his wife and that's what I'm talking about, Will and all this other stuff. And I just remember being so angry. I'm still kind of angry about it just because of how it was done and where it was done and just how bad of a look that was. And not only that, but just, it felt good in the moment kind of thing, but the long-term ramifications, I already saw it. I knew how bad it was going to be the next day. It's like when you having a good time throwing back like 8 or 9 shots just at the bar, just wilding. But long term, when you wake up the next day and maybe even the day after that, you're gonna feel like shit. That's kind of what I was feeling. Like I'm watching you and that might have felt good in the moment, but the long-term ramifications are gonna fuck you up. And for both of them, for Chris and for Will. So, and the reaction to Chris's special just kind of like brought back those old feelings that I had during it, like during the initial like incident. Because the one thing that kind of irked me about it more than anything was that it was only about Jada. I forgot. I was watching Comedy Hype. I can't remember exactly who the gentleman was. He's a comedian, and they were discussing the slap. And one of the things he said was Chris probably called Will Smith a bitch like 23 times, and nobody says anything. But the fact that in passing, Chris called Jada a bitch, that's what people were up in arms about. Like, damn everything he said about Will, damn everything he said about her being a predator. The fact that he called her a bitch was just where it was taking it too far. And I think that's what ultimately like pissed me off about it more than anything. The reactions, the inciting incident is that it begins and ends with Jada. Now, I'm not here to talk bad about nobody's wife. You know, as a married man, I definitely wouldn't want nobody coming in my household like that. But I just, you think back when the slap happened, and you think about how Jada didn't have Will's back when she made the comment that she made. I'll probably leave a screenshot of it because I don't remember it, and I'm really freestyling this because this is just all like my emotions and stuff, as in real time, basically. So, but I just remember her not having his back with the comment that she made when she was asked about the slap. Also, the fact that, and I understand that people get cheated on. Chris even mentioned it, everybody's been cheated on. But, like, you think about it, like, she really did interview her husband about cheating on him to boost ratings. Because everybody, just like with Chris, everybody was waiting on them to directly address the August Alsina stuff when it came out during August Alsina's interview with Angela Yee. So everyone was waiting for their response. So just like Chris, who took it to Netflix, she took it to her show to boost interest in Red Table Talk. And sat across the table with Will Smith, put a camera in this man's face, and basically just admitted to everything. And I'm just watching this man break down in front of the world. And I don't understand how you do that to somebody you love. My guess is for personal gain, because I don't understand why you would do that on your show unless you just really wanted to boost interest for your show. But I just don't understand how you can do that to somebody that you say you're in love with, that you took vows with, and things like that. And for then that man to basically possibly, allegedly, torpedo his entire career, attacking another black man on the stage for a light G.I. Jane joke. And you still don't have his back when that happens. It's just the fact that this all ends and begins with a woman that don't even stand up for you, even a little bit, in moments like this. Like, people were, and then it's just funny that it just became this thing of like Chris Rock is misogynistic. Chris Rock has no respect for black women. He hates black women. There's all these comments and things about this man because he called that woman a bitch one time in passing. And props to Chris, because I saw also, everybody's opinion has been flying, but somebody brought up how Chris never actually said Jada's name during the special. So he followed directions and kept Will's wife's name out of his mouth. So it's funny. I mean, I that just added another layer to the special to me. It was just like, not only was he able to let loose, but he was able to also keep his promise after everything that happened at the Oscars at the same time, in like a backhanded way. I gotta respect the moxie on that one. But yeah, like it's just I don't know. It touched a nerve. It touched a nerve. Like, people post this thing, this meme about how, and they use Tyrese and Kanye and Will Smith as an example of how, nobody gives a shit about when black men are depressed and black men are upset. Like, everybody just makes jokes and makes memes, and like the Will Smith crying face is just all over the internet still. To the same people that are defending his family from what Chris Rock said are also the same ones still using the crying Will Smith meme and shit. So and I know it's one of those things, you see it so many times on the internet, it becomes cliche, but it feels true. Like, I even think about when the August Alsina thing happened. Other than the men that was already gonna like shit on her anyway, other than those kind of guys, and those guys would quickly get shut down because of course they take it too far, and then it goes from being where you might have a point to now you're just a misogynist. But outside of those kind of guys, I feel like the reaction to the news was cracks about how Will is soft. Will don't have his house in order. I started seeing this picture of like Jada with her legs spread, and Will got his legs crossed, and it was just showing, like, people was making comments like she really wears the pants in the family. It was either that, cracking on Will, or it was how August Alsina is, just bitter that he had a little taste of her, but she wouldn't leave the family, or like now he's acting like a groupie. People even brought that stuff up when he kind of like alluded to coming out of the closet. It was just more jokes about the Will and Jada thing. And one of the things that Chris said during the special that nobody has been able to try to defend was when he said that people were calling her a predator. And that part doesn't get brought up because, in relation to that August Alsina situation, she really was. Not only is that a woman old enough to be his mother, sleeping with her son's friend, but he came to them in a time of need. He came with them with a time of need, like, it's well documented. August Alsina had a lot of tragedy around that time of his life, and he basically went to their home seeking comfort in this vulnerable position, and she took advantage of that. I don't know exactly how things went down, but in another situation, if the genders were reversed, I promise you people would be a lot more upset about this older man taking advantage of this younger and very emotionally vulnerable woman. Like, I feel like the conversation would be a little different. And I think that's why it irritates me so much. Like, just as a comparison, like, Jay-Z allegedly cheated on Beyonce, which led to albums like 444, Eliminate. They talk about it in the music, but they don't really talk about it. We don't know nothing about their lives. You know what I'm saying? Which is, I respect that. Even in the midst of that kind of stuff, it made great art, but we're not just gonna talk about it. It had the internet looking for the girl, looking for who allegedly he was messing with. People still mad at Jay-Z to this day behind that, even though they came back together, they made up, and they're like, a happy married couple again. People still mad at Jay for that. Jada didn't catch no flack for that, in my opinion. Other than a couple cute little jokes here and there, no, nobody really gave Jada no flack. It was either Will is a weak husband, or August Alsina is a groupie that, you know, was pillow talking basically, and he bitter because he didn't get Jada full time or something like that. It was a whole lot of that, all deflected away from one of the two guilty parties. The one guilty party that was married, that was in the entanglement. Even the word entanglement became a joke to reference that thing, but it never really reflected that bad on Jada. So the fact that this whole incident happened because of a G.I. Jane joke, yeah, I know. People said that, hey, she's very sensitive about her alopecia and things like that, and people have spoken about it. But still, it was a light joke. And then the irony of it is that when Will slapped Chris for a joke that, let's face it, nobody, first of all, like I said, nobody really watches the Oscars. So if Chris made a G.I. Jane joke, at best, everybody would have forgot about it within the next hour or two, let alone like would have carried it into the next day. And then at worst, you might get a few think pieces here and there, and even that would have dissipated in less than a week about how Chris is, a jackass for that or whatever. Even if they would have come out later and say how hurt Jada was, like in a press release or on Instagram or whatever, it, he would have caught a little bit of flack for that. He would have had to come back and apologize, and it would have been over with. But now, because you went on stage on television to slap Chris, now your family is a bigger target. I watched Marlon Wayne's special, That God Loves Me, on HBO Max. Loved it, by the way. But he goes in on all three of them. He goes in on Chris, he goes in on Will, and he goes in on Jada. And I feel like that special doesn't happen. And all of the other jokes, the harder jokes, the more disrespectful jokes, and the more disrespectful comments about your wife and your family doesn't happen if you don't slap Chris over a G.I. Jane joke that nobody would have remembered it in more than 24 hours. It would have never really even put too much stock into it. That one light joke has made your wife and your family the biggest target. Until something else to this magnitude happens, or that catches the zeitgeist the same way that the slap did, y'all are targets. And then it's just gonna get ramped up even more now that the special is out. And look, I don't be calling women bitches, right? But if I don't like you, all the gloves off. I don't care. Like, and I can't really sit there and tell another man how he should react to being disrespected. Something that could have just been a conversation, something that could have been handled like right then and there, or we could have discussed it. All of the talk is over with. You put hands on me. You just got to be prepared. He was defending his family, true. But I don't know. I feel like what Chris did was probably the most respectful he could have handled it. Because anybody else, I could see it going way worse and way left, and a lot more people would have been hurt. And I applaud Chris for handling his art form. I think at the end of the day, I think both guys were able to get it off their chest. It's been a feud that's been brewing for a long time, apparently, since the Oscar So White thing. And Jada wanted Chris to step down from hosting or quit hosting because of Will not being nominated for Concussion, which was a terrible movie, by the way. Yeah, this feud has been brewing for a long time, and it finally boiled over to the point of no return. But both men were able to take action, address it. Will addressed it, Chris addressed it. Now both have the opportunity to move on. You know, and I think that, just like this podcast, I think that should be the end of it. But, you can tell me what you think in the comments below. Like I said, even after everything I've said, even after everything that transpired in the past year, I still have a lot of respect and admiration for both of them. And maybe they can move past it one day. But even if they don't, at least they both got whatever they needed to get off their chest. And now everybody can move on. But that's my time. It's your boy Vinnie-Dangerous, 1430. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with a friend. But until next time, much love.